Hello! Today I'd like to teach you about a concept called refutation. As you know, in debates you give arguments. And refutations are the flip side of what an argument is. It is challenging or disproving an argument from the opponent's side's case. So let's go over what a refutation is and how you make a good refutation. So refutation is difficult, so I tried to make it easy to understand by using an acronym called ICE. I, C, and E. I stands for identify, C stands for criticize, and E stands for explain. But let's go through what all three of those things are. So I stands for identify. Identify means to say what the other team's argument was. You're clearly stating what they said and what you are about to attack. So you can state the title of their argument and a little bit of what the argument was. For example, if you were doing a debate about smoking and the other side said they have the freedom to smoke, then you would identify by saying they said that people should have the freedom to smoke. So that is you identifying their argument. C stands for criticize. And to criticize is to say why their argument is bad. And there are several ways to do that, but two main ways. One, you could either say that their argument is not true, or you could say that their argument does not matter. And if you say that their argument does not matter, you can say why the argument is either not related to the debate that you're discussing, or that their argument is less important than your argument. And then the third step is E for explain. And explaining is giving proof for the things that you said when you were criticizing. So why is their argument not true? Or why is their argument not important? So yeah, refutation is just those three simple steps. However, the difficulty with refutation is how you execute those three steps. So for example, for identifying, it is difficult to be able to listen to what they said and then clearly explain back to the judge what it is you are refuting. One tip that I have for being able to identify better is to take notes while they are explaining their argument, so you know what you want to refute. Another simple step that I have for identifying is to be able to clearly, in one sentence, explain their argument. The more clear you are with your identification, the easier it is for the judge to know what you are attacking. Another tip is for criticizing. When you're criticizing, you can actually sometimes say that their argument is not true and not important, which is a more powerful refutation. So first you would prove why their argument is not untrue, but then you could say that even if their argument was true, it is not important. This is a concept I like to call double bagging. Have you ever been to the grocery store and you had a bunch of fruits and vegetables? Well, usually you'd put one bag around it, then you put a second bag to make that stronger. Refuting an argument by saying it is both not true and not important gives it double the amount of strength. If you want to have an even stronger refutation, one thing that you can do is identify specific things that were said during the argument and try to attack those specific things. For example, if you were doing a debate about smoking and somebody was giving the proof for their argument saying that smoking helps them relieve stress, you can attack that specific line, that specific argument by pointing it out and having a section of your refutation to attack that argument. So let's walk through an example of a very simple refutation. If you were doing the topic, this house would make school uniforms mandatory, and the other side said that buying school uniforms is cheaper than buying regular clothes, how would you refute that? Well, first, you would identify what they said. So you would identify by saying, they said that school uniforms are cheaper than regular clothes. And then, how would you criticize that? Well, first, you would say that that is untrue, right? You would say that no, school uniforms are not cheaper than regular clothes because perhaps private schools would charge more for the school uniforms than most stores charge for regular clothes. After you prove that school uniforms being more expensive is not true, you could also say that it's not important. So you could say something like, even if school uniforms are more expensive, it doesn't matter because the benefits you get from school uniforms far outweigh the harms of a school uniform being more expensive. So, in this way, you've not only proven that it's not true that school uniforms are more expensive, but also, assuming that they are more expensive, have proven that it doesn't really matter that much. So while you are criticizing the argument that it's not true and not important, you would also have to be explaining why that is true. So I'll give another example. Imagine you were debating the topic, this house would ban zoos. And the other side, the other team said that we want to ban zoos because zoos are unethical and they hurt animals. The first thing that you would do is you would identify what they said, right? So you would say, they said that zoos hurt animals and that's why they want to ban zoos. Second, you would criticize that statement. There are the two different ways of criticizing that statement. The first way would be to say that that's untrue, right? And so the statement, they hurt animals, is actually quite broad. And even if they gave statistic for animals being hurt in zoos, you would say that, look, this is not always the case in zoos. And actually a lot of zoos around the world treat animals quite nicely and humanely. The second thing that you would say is that even if some animals, a few animals are hurt, it's not as important as the benefits that we get. And you would say that we get the benefit of saving lots of endangered species, right? And saving endangered species might be more important than some animals being hurt, even though that's a bad thing. So after you do that, you would maybe give some more proof as to why animals are not hurt all the time in zoos, or more proof about why endangered species are important and why that point beats their point about animals being hurt. So yeah, that's another example of a refutation. So yeah, very simply, that is how to make a refutation. There's a lot more that can be learned about refutations and making good refutations, but I think that the best way to learn is to practice. So other than having real debates, another really good way to practice refutations is to make your own arguments and then try to refute your own arguments. And also that type of practice is really good because you also get to practice making arguments. Another way that you can practice refutations is to watch videos of other debaters debating, and then after they make their arguments, pausing and then writing down your own refutation. And sometimes in the debate, you can check to see if the refutations that you thought about were the same as the refutations that were given during the debate. Some more broad, generalized tips for refutations is that you should try to refute every argument that you heard in the previous speech. So if the first proposition speaker made two main arguments, you should definitely be refuting both of those arguments. Second tip that I have is never leave your refutation for later on in the speech. Always have your refutation near the beginning part of your speech. The reason why that makes sense is that when you are refuting something that somebody else said, you never want to leave it till later. So if the school bully called you an idiot, you wouldn't want to respond to him the next day, you would want to respond to him right away. Also, one last tip is that if you have multiple refutations in your speech, it is really good to signpost your refutations by saying, I'm going to refute this, this, and this. So yeah, that covers everything for refutations today. There's a lot more that can be said about refutations, and I can do a more advanced, more in-depth lecture on the different types of refutations, and that could come in a video later. And if you really want that video, please let me know in the comments, okay? But yeah, for now, that's everything, and I hope you learned a lot from this lecture. Thank you.